The chosen one Leo's fascination wasn't a passing phase. It was an obsession that consumed his every waking thought. He devoured every book he could find on the occult, his mind a cauldron of spells, rituals, and forbidden knowledge. But books weren't enough. He craved an encounter, a real, tangible brush with the supernatural. He wanted to meet a ghost, a djinn, a demon, anything to prove that the veil between worlds was thin enough to be torn. He hunched over his keyboard, the glow of the screen illuminating his eager face in his dimly lit room in Karachi. He was deep in an online forum, passionately arguing about the existence of jinns with a skeptic. They're not just stories. He typed vehemently, his fingers flying across the keys. There are ways to connect with them, rituals. Just then, a notification popped up, a Facebook message from someone named Khalid Alim. Intrigued, Leo clicked it open. The message read, "I saw your post about wanting to meet such beings. Perhaps I can introduce you to someone who can help you live your dream." Khalid was a man who smelled of stale cigarettes and something unidentifiable, like dust and old paper. He was older than Leo had expected, with a gaunt face and eyes that held a flicker of something unsettling. Despite the unease, Leo's excitement was a powerful current, drowning out any warning bells. They boarded a battered bus. The journey a chaotic blur of honking horns, weaving rickshaws, and the relentless heat of the city. The bus rattled on, taking them further and further from the familiar bustling streets. The neighborhoods grew more and more neglected buildings, looked like crumbling skeletons, and the air thickened with a strange stillness. Finally, they got off in a part of the city Leo had never seen before. It was a forgotten place, a labyrinth of narrow, garbage-strewn alleys and silent, decaying houses. At the end of a particularly dark lane, where the streetlights had long since died, stood a building that was a jarring anomaly. It was an old church, its once pristine facade now a grimy, peeling shell. The cross on its steeple was lopsided and half-rusted, and its ornate wooden doors were warped and blackened with age, looking less like a welcoming entrance and more like the sealed mouth of a tomb. A shiver, colder than the humid night air, traced its way down Leo's spine. Khaled pulled out a battered old phone and made a call, the sound of his low voice swallowed by the eerie quiet of the street. In less than a minute, the creaking of the ancient door echoed in the night air, and a man emerged, his face obscured by the shadows. He nodded curtly at Khaled and beckoned for them to follow, pushing open a small side door that led into the church's cavernous interior. The air inside was heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, a cloying, metallic odor that made the hairs on Leo's arms stand on end. They were led past rows of splintered pews and a dust-shrouded altar, the man's footsteps echoing ominously. He stopped before a loose floorboard and, with a grunt, pried it open to reveal a narrow staircase. The scent of decay intensified as they descended into the suffocating darkness. The basement was a stark contrast to the church above. It was a vast, sprawling space illuminated by the flickering light of several lanterns, and it was full of people. They sat in small, hushed groups, their faces a mosaic of different ethnicities and ages. But they all had the same look in their eyes, a desperate, fervent obsession. The air thrummed with a nervous energy, a collective anticipation that was palpable. All eyes turned to Leo as he entered, their gazes a mix of curiosity and something else, something predatory. He felt a small tug on his pant leg and looked down. A little girl, no older than 5, with wide, terrified eyes and tangled hair, was clutching his trousers. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "take me home with you." The plea was so simple, so heartbreakingly real, that for a moment the fog of Leo's obsession cleared. A wave of profound dread washed over him, a sense of having walked into a place from which there was no return. Leo's mind reeled. The little girl's plea, the unsettling gazes of the people in the basement, the suffocating air, it was all too much. His naive excitement had curdled into a cold, hard knot of fear. I need to go," he stammered, pulling free of the child's grasp. He scrambled back up the stairs, his heart pounding against his ribs, and burst out of the church doors into the street. The cool night air felt like a balm, but his relief was short-lived. He reached into his pocket and his blood ran cold. His phone was gone. He must have dropped it in the chaos of the basement. With a heavy sigh, he turned back, forcing himself to re-enter the decaying building. The church above was just as empty and silent as before. The metallic smell lingered, but it was thinner now. He hurried to the secret door and descended the stairs once more. The basement was a shock. It was utterly, completely empty. The lanterns were gone. The groups of people, the scattered objects, the little girl, all of it had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a thick layer of dust. He was alone. Looking for this? A voice asked from the shadows. Khalid emerged, holding Leo's phone. His face was no longer gaunt. It was a mask of amused condescension. The flicker in his eyes was now a steady, malevolent glow. "What happened to everyone?" Leo asked, his voice trembling. Khalid laughed, a dry, rattling sound that seemed to scrape against the walls. "They went home, of course," he said, holding out the phone. "They all went back to where they belong." He took a step closer, and Leo instinctively recoiled. "You were the only one who was human, Leo," Khalid said, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "The only one who didn't belong. This whole time, you weren't looking for a Djinn. You were the one being watched. You were the one being chosen." Khalid's laughter subsided into a low, rattling chuckle. "You've read all the books, haven't you? You know how the faithful, be they Muslim or Jew, make sacrifices of goats and sheep to their Lord. They are offerings of devotion and gratitude. Well, a sect of my kind, the very ones you wanted so desperately to meet, also have a sacrifice, but our offering, it is of a different, more precious kind. It is a sacrifice made to our own God, a ritual to honor the one who chose us." He stepped out of the shadows, revealing his features more clearly. His skin seemed to ripple and shift, and his eyes, once just unsettling, were now pools of malevolent fire. "You, Leo, have been officially chosen. You were the only human, and that makes you the perfect vessel. You have only a few days now until they come for you. A profound, bone-deep terror settled over Leo, so heavy and cold it felt like a physical weight. The thrill of the occult, the adventure he'd craved, was gone. All that remained was the hollow certainty that he was nothing more than an offering, a gift to a dark, unseen power. Cursing the day he ever made his Facebook ID, the day that had ultimately introduced him to Khaled and sealed his fate, Leo stumbled out into the night, knowing that every tick of the clock was bringing him closer to an end he had foolishly, naively pursued.